Today, for the Ladder's Finest number 4, it is an ELO-based tournament using the Discord bot on my very own Discord server, where the highest ELO players who are available have signed up to play against each other in a top 8 tournament. Players are up online right now, and I'll be joined with Dactor to go ahead and cast some games as they fight for the $5 prize. So, for game number 1, we have Void Lols against Felix, with Void Lols playing as the Greenskins up against Felix's Tomb Kings, which he used to counterpick. So, yeah, should be a pretty exciting game. We'll be loading in just a second. And before that, do you have any faction preference that you want to cover, Doctor?
I'm good with covering either one, but I guess I'll choose to cover the greenskins to start.
All right, sounds good. I also just remembered I need to change my camera settings. Let me just go ahead and do that, and okay. So as soon as they load in, we'll actually, I guess we'll begin.
And indeed, it looks like we are loading in now, so that's nice.
All right, and here we go. Feel free to start when ready.
All right, so for the greenskins, we have Grom the Paunch atop his chariot, pretty standard pick. We have a giant river troll hag with spirit leech and mither. We have, it looks like a night goblin shaman with vindictive glare and let's see if I can remember the name of that spell. Not one you see terribly often, so I'd like to. It is, Itchy Nuisance. Okay, so double caster coming in from Void Laws. We then see, it looks like a total of 4 skirmish cav, a mixture of Goblin Wolf Rider Archers and Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers, including the Morgrub's Mangy Marauders Armor Piercing variant. We see a couple of Forest Goblin Spider Riders, the melee variant. We see triple Stone Troll, and then well, as soon as this lag spike subsides, I'll see it is the ROR Night Goblin Fanatics. It looks like a mixture of 3 Orc Boys and 2 Goblins as the front line. And that'll round out Void Lulls' build. How about the Tomb Kings?
Well, for the Tomb Kings of Felix, we are seeing a pretty heavy infantry build with, let's see, the ROR Spears, just loads of spear and sword infantry with only a single unit of Tomb Guard, the ROR with their magic damage and regeneration, with an small archer box in the center, and most of his money coming in the form of a Casket of Souls, 2 Tomb Princes, one of them with Guardian 2 and the Terror ability, plus Cetra, with a pretty fully set out and standard kit, along with just a couple of units of cavalry. So it looks like it's going to be a just a standard boxish defensive formation against the greenskins, buying time for the casket to kill all the infantry. But in this case, the greenskins don't really have anything too elite to shoot at with the casket.
No, they don't. Now, actually, it's really interesting that it's Horse Cetra. That's not something you see terribly often, but I think it makes a lot of sense here. You get a nice bonus versus large and some really, really good melee stats to help out against Grom and some Stone Trolls. The problem is that Felix really does not have a lot to deal with Stone Trolls other than his hero core, so he's going to need them to kind of hard carry this game, it feels like. Also, he's kind of ceded the mobility advantage over to Void Lulls, and in this matchup in particular, the mobility advantage is huge because the Tomb Kings don't have much trouble routing off Stone Trolls, but they do have a lot of trouble chasing them off, and when the Stone Trolls come back, that's when the trouble really starts. So I'm a little concerned for Felix here, but we'll have to see how this goes. Also, Vindictive Glare is going to be going down on the Casket of Souls. There's nothing to block it. So this should be some pretty good damage as soon as the Night Goblin Shaman stops spazzing out and miscasting.
Yep. Oh, and there we go. Vindictive Glare does come in. Overcast. Over About 1/3 of the HP of the casket already down, plus an overcast spirit leech to get that range in. Looks like he's going to be really focusing on killing that casket.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. I don't think the casket is that much of a win condition, but I mean, at the same time, it's a very expensive piece, and getting rid of it is uh, is a good thing to do anyway. I guess if it can clear all the chaff, then the stone trolls will have a really rough time fighting against the spears. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think honestly, right now the biggest threat to the greenskins does appear to just really be those archers and the mass infantry. The hero squad too could possibly pose a threat, but I haven't really seen too many hero squads like this for the Tomb King, so it's sort of hard to assess how threatening they are. But if they do manage to kill off these stone trolls, then that would be a pretty big problem for Felix.
ooh, another vindictive glare going down. This could kill the casket.
Ooh, this one
Oh,
not
it's
hitting.
undercasted, I think, so it doesn't do nearly as much damage.
Yeah. However, the casket is beginning to get pretty low. I'd expect another spirit leech to come down soon too. And there we go. Spirit leech does drop, but at this point, the winds of magic has to be starting to run pretty low for the greenskins, and he'll probably need to wait for a bit just for that to begin rebuilding. So I would expect the casket to get at least a few shots off at this point.
Ooh, really bad RNG for Void Lulls too. That Spirit Leech is almost nothing. Yeah, I feel like that might have been a misplay actually. I think if you're wanting to focus on the casket, you should just focus solely on overcasting Vindictive Glares on it until it's dead, because that's much more Winds of Magic efficient.
Yeah, with
But we'll have to see. I mean, maybe he can get another Vindictive Glare up before the main battle starts. But it's hard to say. I mean, it would, without any extra Winds of Magic regen other than the base for the greenskins, it will be kind of tough, I think.
yeah, and in the meantime, the skirmishers seem to be getting they're not getting too much crazy damage in this game, but if they do actually manage to survive in the late game, I think that would probably be the biggest threat to the hero core, specifically the AP Goblin Wolf Archers.
Ooh,
I feel
misplayed.
like
The Blessed Legion of I don't even know how to say that, are getting caught out by a couple of skirmish cavalry. They will probably take a fair bit of damage, but then again, the greenskin cav is not particularly great on the charge, so actually they will escape more or less untouched, despite basically venturing out on their own little exploration of the world. So
yeah, actually
almost a
pretty
disaster.
surprising. In the
Yeah.
end though, just Wolf Archers are not especially strong on the charge.
Now we see that Felix has taken up this kind of defensive position in the middle of the map, with the only force in the entire map actually right out in front of him. And Void Lulls is setting up, it looks like, for a flank overload. But he's playing very patiently for sure. He's allowing his skirmish cav to use a lot of their missiles. And actually, it looks like a Vindictive Glare going down. Will it be enough to kill the casket?
And it does look like it's on a pretty good trajectory.
Ooh, that's a lot of
And
damage.
yeah, the casket does barely manage to hold though, and more
It's
importantly,
crumbling.
oh, actually, it is. It looks like it does
Yep.
have a tiny bar of leadership, but that means it will die eventually. And having really only killed off a few goblin archers and some orc boys, that should be effective gold-wise if you don't count the winds of magic, though. And it was quite a bit of winds of magic, although I think in this case there wasn't too much else to really snipe in this situation, other than the single entities.
Yeah, I think actually Vindictive Glares onto the Tomb Princes or Cetra would have been really nice too. But I mean, getting that casket off the field now, Void Lulls can take his time. He can really abuse his mobility advantage, try to get a full surround skirmish, basically use all of his ammunition. So it's definitely nice from that perspective. And of course, also the casket just not going to get nearly as much value, so he'll definitely have his infantry until the main battle starts at the very least.
Yeah, not to mention the leadership debuff on the casket too. Just being hit by artillery is going to keep those stone trolls together for quite a bit longer. And the positioning too with this overload is pretty nice. It does actually give the trolls a lot of space to route off into the rest of the battlefield. So we should at this point expect them to actually stick around for most of the battle at this point.
Yeah, especially because, as kind of alluded to earlier, there is a huge mobility advantage on the side of the Greenskins. Now, actually, Grom going out a little bit ahead of everyone. He actually pops Lucky Banner. That's a big cooldown. But he wants to man mode Cetra, and it looks like the Stone Trolls are going to come in to support. So maybe the Tomb Kings are wanting to pull out of here now, and indeed they will.
Yeah, with
Um,
Grom actually trading up pretty well.
Ooh, Mither going down though. Man, Grom is doing quite well here. He's had to pop all of his buffs though. So the Greenskins definitely want to do something with this, or else just delay the game long enough that they come back off cooldown. Now okay, a nice Fanatics cast going into the Kepler Guard actually doing a ton of damage, but Grom is getting taken down below half HP, or actually about at half HP. He will manage to get out through his own Stone Trolls here. I think he'll be okay. A nice actually effect from Cetra going down there, going to be blinding all of those Stone Trolls, hurting their melee stats. But yeah, it seems like this big blob engagement is probably going to decide the game at this point.
Yeah, although I think the Greenskins do have an opportunity to pull back if they feel like it does end up being a bad engagement. But we are now seeing the effects of picking off that Casket of Souls now. As if it was online and operational, it would be doing a lot of damage to all these clumped up stone trolls. Now,
Yeah,
as
a
for
really
Grom,
nice charge from Cetra. Felix is doing a good job of weaving through this engagement to try and hunt down Grom. But at the same time, he also needs the hero squad to deal with the Stone Trolls. That's kind of the only anti-large he has in this entire build that's relevant, because Spearmen or Skeleton Spearmen are not going to do much anyway. Now we see a AoE cast going down here. It's actually Itchy Nuisance paired with a Wah, so this could be where the Greenskins turn the game in their favor decisively.
yeah, Grom is moving back into the battle though, which does leave him a little bit exposed to getting picked off. But if you don't actually kill him, his regeneration will really carry him as you go into the late game. And a dive in from the trolls too look like they will be taking out the ROR skeleton archers, and that is a very big pick. If they actually do get killed off, then there won't be any more armor debuffs for the trolls.
Yeah, now the Tomb Kings are kind of hunting the Giant River Troll Hag, who does have Spirit Leech, but probably not the biggest problem in this build at this point. Now the Ushapti summon goes down actually onto the Night Goblin Fanatic RORs. Probably not the best target for them. I think they would have been better placed in this Stone Troll blob. But we are seeing that the chaff for the Greenskins is starting to run a bit thin. And without any chaff, of course, Stone Trolls will not have a good time. Meanwhile, the Tomb King is getting a nice round onto Grom the Paunch, but he does have all of his buffs popped. So as long as those are up, he won't be taking too much damage. Um, he's actually up to 104 melee attack. It's pretty insane. But in the background, you can see the Tomb Kings. They're starting to also run low on stuff. Their backline is starting to get cleaned up a little bit, but at the same time, they're running low on units. And once they run out of chaff, their hero squad isn't going to be having too much of a good time. As you can already see, one Tomb Prince going down here, down to about 300 HP, and he'll be crumbling off the map in just a moment.
Yeah, there was almost a pretty nasty pick on Grom, but Ever the Slippery Lord, he does manage to escape, and that's basically going to be it for the Tomb Kings. Just really getting overwhelmed by the Greenskin forces and not having enough punch to really beat this blob of stone trolls by the looks of it. And
Yeah,
in the end, it looks like, yeah, that's going to be it. Now, for the Tomb Kings, do you think anything could have been changed play-wise to really deal with the stone troll blob after the casket died?
I'm not sure. I guess really what the Tomb Kings would have needed to do is get the archers firing in onto them, just for the armor sundering, if nothing else. So that way Skeleton Spearmen could help drag them down. But honestly, I do feel like the Tomb Kings didn't have the greatest build against what the Greenskins bought. Um, I mean, ceding the mobility advantage and kind of relying exclusively on a hero squad to deal with the greenskins. I'm not sure if that's usually going to be a recipe for success. I guess it would be a lot better against, say, a spider build, but against the stone troll blob, it's I don't know if it's going to be a very effective strategy.
Yeah, and just looking at the damage values, it does seem like probably the archers were the needed solution there. But yeah, some nice play on both sides, and shutting down the archers eventually so that they couldn't hit the trolls, and also positioning in an area a little bit further from the armor sundering archers. Then for game number 2, Board Lulls against Felix. Coming in with Bretonia versus the Empire, we're seeing a pretty heavy, actually no, a very standard Bretonian build by the looks of it,
Ooh,
except for the Lord, which we are seeing Alberek coming in with his Trident and AoE skill that is okay against infantry, and some extra damage boosts. He comes in with a Paladin with Guardian and a Damsel of Life with only Earthblood. No regrowths to regenerate the stamina. Pretty interesting pick. What else does Alberic have? He has the Braid of Bordelot, which does give +8 bonus versus large, and we'll see if that actually comes into play during the game. The rest of the army is very standard Bretonia. 2 trebuchets, some questing knights, 3 of them in fact. 2 spears, battle pilgrims, which are good in this matchup against infantry, and of course the usual peasant mobs. So with that out of the way, what do we have for the Empire side?
So for the Empire, we do have Volkmar the Grim coming in with his standard kit. We have double Outrider, an Amethyst Wizard with Spirit Leech on a Pegasus, interestingly enough. Not often you see that. We have the Zintler's Reichsguard ROR, who you almost never see. Very curious to see them. We have a frontline, a mix of spearmen and halberds with the Sigmar Sons ROR, and it looks like double cannon, including the Hammer of the Witches. Now, I'm a little concerned for the Empire, and Felix again, actually. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure he's going to lose the artillery duel. And with that, he's going to have a really hard time, given that his build is very infantry heavy, advancing into a bunch of peasant bowmen and trebuchets.
Yeah, not to mention, I don't think even if the artillery battle goes well for him, the peasant archers are still a pretty big threat against all of this infantry, and he doesn't really have a ton of counters for them. Volkmar would be a good option, but with the threat of Alberek, I don't think he'll really be able to dive in on top of them. So this is already looking pretty bad for the Empire side, but we'll see if he's able to pull it through. Immediately the Amethyst Wizard looking to Spirit Leech the Trebuchets possibly, but gets pushed away by the Paladin. Now, as for the Bretonians, they are beginning to advance. This is good for them, and with the Trebuchet sort of tucked away behind these terrain pieces, it actually makes it where makes it so that they can't easily be shot down by the cannons. So we would expect a pretty decisive artillery win here for the Bretonians, but do you think they should be advancing in this situation?
I don't think it's a terrible idea. It's not like the Empire has a lot that they can actually do to punish this. The peasant bowmen are going to be able to reign relatively free. I mean, the only thing that the Empire really has to deal with them at all is Volkmar the Grim, and he has to be wary because of the Paladin and Alberic, that he doesn't overextend. So we are seeing also, it looks like Alberic and the Paladin moving in towards the Amethyst Wizard, and they might actually dive in aggressively. I'm not sure. Looks like, though, they're going to be going with a more conservative play, which makes a lot of sense. Eating a bit of fire from some Outriders, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal. And actually, Volkmar is going all the way in, and he is getting surrounded now, but he'll drop a nice Soulfire onto those Battle Pilgrims, and a nice Banishment onto some Peasant Bowmen. But he really needs to be very careful not to get picked off here, because if he does, then the game is basically just instantly over.
Yeah, and
Oh, the trident.
oh man, here we go. Looks like the Empire state troops do manage to pull away, but it gets a decent amount of damage to the Sigmar Sons. Actually takes out about half their HP, so definitely not too bad. As for Volkmar, though, he is playing very aggressively and using his Reiksguard to actually defend him. And he actually gets a pretty good surround on the Paladin and Alberic.
Yeah, it's solid. But man, this Empire formation is basically in tatters right now. It's just been, I mean, I would say pulled apart, but it just kind of did it to itself. So I'm very concerned that they won't be able to protect the. Well, I guess the cannon is the only high value target they were really protecting at this point. But they will be getting surrounded here by questing knights, and also the Zintler's Reiksguard getting absolutely pounded by peasant bowmen. Means that they will be basically taken off the field here, and with that, the Bretonians will have a decisive cavalry advantage.
Yeah, with really the main threat to them being the Outriders in this situation. So they will be stuck mostly within the range of the peasant archers. As for the infantry of the Empire, it does seem like they were able to break the front line, but they'll generally have a pretty hard time catching these peasant bowmen. So I don't think there's really too much of a threat there, and given that there's no more cavalry, what do you think the Empire's options are to deal with these peasant archers?
They don't really have many options at all, and actually the cannon's getting compromised, so that's one more tool that they had going down. I guess they just need Volkmar to kind of hard carry, but I don't know. It's going to be really, really difficult.
Yeah, unless there is always a chance that he'll get some very lucky hits against Alberic and the Paladin, but the likeliness of that is very low. And another sniping attempt on top of him is coming on down. The Outriders aren't really there to support. They're in other areas of the battlefield. And Volkmar does manage to escape, but his situation is looking worse and worse by the moment.
Yeah, and the problem with Volkmar is that unlike some other lords who can get lucky RNG and somehow win fights that they really have no business winning, Volkmar not only has kind of mediocre combat stats, but his weapon strength is actually very low. So even if he manages to land a couple lucky hits, it's not the end of the world. And you can see that Alberic is just going to town on him right now. A full surround, and Volkmar going down here should spell the end for the Empire quite quickly.
Yeah, plus another heal on Alberic and the Paladin. Unless they sit in these halberds for a very long time. Balance of power is now swung into very heavily into the Bretonian favor. They even still have many of their questing knights, and a big AoE too. The Trident coming in again, killing off an entire unit of spearmen with a single cast.
Yeah, it's actually cool to see Alberic here. It's not something that you see typically, but I think it does make some sense. I mean, AoE anti-large buffs. He does have the Trident, which does a ton of damage if it manages to land. So it makes a lot of sense in my opinion. And quite a cool tech piece. I'm not sure. Unfortunately, it seems like Felix's build just wasn't entirely suited to play on this map against Voidlaw's build. I guess it was relying pretty heavily on an artillery advantage, and maybe he was expecting the Fey because he seemed to be really relying on Volkmar as well to be able to clear out basically all of the peasant bowmen by himself.
And there we go, Volkmar does go down. Not before bringing Albrecht to about 2/3 HP, but it doesn't really matter as the Empire breaks down into army losses.
Yep,
Alright.
and Voidlaw is going to take a pretty decisive 2-0 victory there, definitely showing how he's been terrorizing the ladder recently.
Yeah, and if we take a look at the value of most of these units, the Bretonian archers, as always, at full HP and getting in all of their damage in. I think really just Bretonian archers in general. If you can't deal with them, it's a pretty rough situation, and that was really the main problem Felix ran into this time around. Not to mention Alberic too, coming in with 3,000 damage value. Actually, pretty impressive, and just acting as a big terror lord. Um, Sort of very similar to how Lewin would work, but with that extra anti-infantry ability. Alright, so GG. I think that's about all the numbers we really need to cover here. So
Yeah.
on to the next game.
I do want to cover.
I guess I'll start
Oh
with
my
the more
God.
standard high elf side, coming in from
Yeah.
Hadri's up against Gobbo Slayer. We're seeing a pretty classic high elf build up against the dwarves. Alariel with Tempest plus 3 bolt throwers, more than enough to deal with gyrocopters in most situations. The bolt throwers are really good at killing off dwarven troll hammers and iron drakes too if they do show up, and of course also dwarven artillery. The front line of white lions with their missile resist and armor piercing will beat most all dwarven infantry except for hammerers, but they tend to die to the high elf archers. So all in all, pretty standard. And as for the dwarves, what are we seeing, Dactor?
We are seeing some wild shenanigans going down. So we have Grumbrindal the White Dwarf is by far the most standard thing in this build. For infantry, we have only Slayers. It looks like a total of 5 regular Slayers and 1 Giant Slayer. We then have 3 cannons, 2 organ guns, and that's the build. We have only artillery and Slayers. So I think the idea here is that the cannons will kill the chariots, and then you trade efficiently enough with Slayers against White Lions that it's okay from there. But we'll have to see. Now, I'm definitely expecting the dwarves to get an artillery advantage, but I'm kind of concerned for them, given that so much of the map is forest. I feel like the White Lion chariots could go through there. But we'll have to see. I mean, yeah, I do actually think the Lion Chariots of Trace, if they go through the tree line, should not have too much trouble getting onto the dwarves intact. But at the same time, they aren't really the win condition here compared to the archers and the White Lions of Trace, who will need to be dealt with basically, I think, mostly with the organ guns more than anything, held up by Slayers and killed by organ guns. But yeah, I will say I've never seen a build like this before, so it could be that I'm reading entirely wrong into this.
Yeah, this is it's a strange build. They, like you said, the White Lions really need to be dealt with, but I'm a bit worried that the organ guns are going to get sniped out by these bolt throwers. The cannons can only fire at so many targets, and given the artillery of Hadri's, it's going to take quite some time before they actually go down. If he marches just directly into organ gun fire though, things could actually work out for Gobbo Slayer, so let's see if the damage actually stacks up here. First volley of cannons.
Already 1 bolt thrower going down. No, I swear that's 2, right? It looks like one might have just gotten staggered. Weird.
Yep,
I did not realize artillery pieces could get staggered, but indeed it does.
Just slowed
not
down.
The worst volley.
And a second volley of cannons, and it looks like the bolt thrower. Oh no, it does go down. So that's 2 of them down already. Pretty fast, but I guess that comes
and
with
a third. And
bringing so many cannons.
No, a third. Yeah, man, this is clearly some intense gameplay right now. We're counting the artillery pieces going down, but in the meantime, the Lion Chariots going in on the flank. They will be getting attacked, I think, by organ guns here in just a second, so they need to be very careful. The organ guns also firing in onto some White Lions, I think, and man, yeah, I don't know. This is just wild. So the archers actually might kind of carry this. Like, there's nothing to screen them out or anything, and they're just going to be firing into Slayers and cannons, so they're going to be accruing insane value very, very, very quickly.
Yeah, and the Slayers can't really abandon the cannons either to chase down the archers, so I imagine that's going to be a pretty rough situation. Not to mention the White Lions have actually started... They're basically at the line of Slayers at this point. Basically untouched by the artillery. So unless Slayers just miraculously trade amazingly into White Lions, this is looking like it may be a bad situation. But I could be wrong in that situation. The Slayers do dive in towards the White Lions now, but a good pull away from Hadri's actually allows his archers to kill off the the giant slayers who don't have any missile resist.
Yeah. Now the organ guns are continuing to fire in. They aren't actually getting any damage really. I'm not sure if they're having line of sight issues or what's going on. But they are really not doing a whole lot. And they need to be doing a whole lot to have any chance to win this game because the dwarf position is on a timer, and that timer is ticking down rapidly. You can see that white lions are getting onto all of the cannon pieces. All of the slayers are starting to get wrecked basically in melee, as you would expect them to. And yeah, things are looking very rough right now for the dwarves. Now, they came in with a cool build. I'm guessing they expected like mass chariot play. Um, but Hadri's coming in with a relatively balanced army, making him kind of immune to this sort of cheese. Maybe he was expecting it, given Goblet Slayer's reputation as a creative player, we'll say. Knowing that he had to just bring something standard that would be immune to any sort of shenanigans.
Yeah, and seems like it has paid off quite dramatically now. Some of the White Lions have actually lost a few of their battles against the against the Slayers, surprisingly enough. But at this point in the game, it seems like the Slayers didn't really pull out enough of a win versus the White Lions, because all of the archers are still operational. The bolt throwers, although pretty battered, are still able to fire too. So in the absolute worst case, where all these Slayers die, the game would just collapse into a sort of kite style of game, where the dwarves would just be kited away as they slowly get picked apart by archers and bolt throwers. Not to mention too, the White Lions are surprisingly good against Slayers if they can get the charge in on them. And they've actually held up fairly well despite fighting up against an army meant to counter this type of unit.
Yeah, and man, you can see that the Lion Chariot's doing really well considering that the entire build was basically predicated on killing them. Larry actually, this is okay. So this reminds me a little bit. Um, to go off on a little bit of a tangent because it does seem like this game is relatively over. Lotus Moon on his Discord server had challenges, and one of the challenges was to win a quick battle with an 11 artillery and nothing else Tomb King build. And this kind of reminds me of that challenge because every time I tried it, the Lord just went around and killed everything. And we can see Alariel just running around killing organ guns at will with really nothing to stop her. Um, it's definitely rough. It's definitely rough. Going this heavy on artillery, um, it leaves you open to a lot of problems. Uh, Not least of all is just the Lord deciding to swoop down and kill individual artillery pieces and units, and there not being much counterplay.
Yeah, in general, artillery doesn't actually pay for itself in most battles. Most of the time, they're taken to force the opponent to advance or to pick off very specific key targets. Against infantry, well, there is some anti-infantry artillery, but we didn't see any dwarven flame cannons this game, especially as they are extremely expensive. And in this case, yeah, just all the targets that they weren't able to finish off once the fighting actually gets started, it's going to be a really rough situation. Not to mention the White Lions of Trace coming in along the flank, basically unkillable. And yeah, this game is basically over here. I think even if Grombrindle gets the absolute best RNG imaginable, I think he may just get shot by archers to death, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I will say also this build would have had a lot better chances on a more open map. On a map with this much forest, the Lion Chariots are able to just advance up the flank and then come in without any real counterplay. So yeah, unfortunately, Gabo not accounting for the map quite enough with his build, which is definitely something you need to do as the dwarves. They rely very heavily on playing around terrain. So
Yeah, and here we go. Alariel now coming in for the dive in on Grombrindle. He pops the flash bomb. He's gonna swing his axe, but just the charge bonus on Alariel is already pretty punishing. Although in her retreat, he might actually be able to take her down before she escapes if he lands a couple more hits, but out of the infantry, she's now good, and Grombrindle's gonna be escorted by a couple lion chariots. And can I say too?
Even a star of apple. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that is brutal, but the chariots actually do really well against footlords too. A single beat up unit of line chariots can actually kill off Count Noctilus as long as you have a bit of infantry to support. So just to really put the nail in the coffin, I think they'd be able to kill Grombrindle no problem, just between the two of them.
Yeah, he's definitely getting dragged down here quite quickly. The game definitely appears to be over, especially given that the archers have a lot of ammo left even. They're just not firing in, of course, because they're obstructed by their own units. But yeah, Grombrindle down below 1k HP. It is cool to see these sorts of wild builds, but it does seem like more often than not they don't end up working out. I don't know. This is one of those matchups too where you really do have to go with something crazy to have any chance of winning. So I don't know. It's one that I certainly would avoid playing at all costs. But I guess if you're confident enough with the dwarves, maybe you'll try it. But in this case, it doesn't quite work out. So.
Yep, and Hadri's takes the victory. 2-1. And I guess we'll take a quick look at damage values. One of the organ guns did actually pay for itself, surprisingly enough. But yeah, just way too many targets. I'm also surprised how well the Slayers did against the White Lions. They actually fought decently well in those engagements, but Slayers are just so expensive. And the thing about High Elves is that even though their infantry might lose in specific situations in a vacuum, they have so much support with healing from Alariel, chariots, archers, and so on that the dwarves simply don't have access to. Which factions would you like to cover?
I suppose I'll cover the vampire counts if that's all right.
All right,
So,
go ahead.
Coming in, we do have the game not wanting to tell me the Lord. It is Vlad von Karstein coming in with the standard kit with Dance Macabre, Invocation, and Raise Dead. We have double White King for a very terrifying foot squad, which actually is very, very strong. I've had the misfortune of playing against it. We have, it looks like a couple of Cairn Rays on the flanks, interestingly enough, with 4 skeletons of the Spirit and Warrior variety, and 4 zombies making up the infantry corps. We have a single Vargulf, a regular Corpse Cart. It looks like a couple units of Black Knights, 1 unit of Blood Knights, and then 2 Fellbats. So a bit off meta here. Very interesting to see. I definitely like the foot squad, but not a ton of anti-large killing power just because there's only the 1 Blood Knight. We'll have to see how the Cairn Wraiths do as well, because that's definitely a very off-meta choice here, given the amount of magic damage that the Empire tends to have. But what do the Empire have, Enticity?
Well, for the Empire, we are seeing a pretty interesting defensive formation here. Flagellant wall with spears and halberds in the back to defend. And as for what they're actually defending, like you said, 2 gun units, 1 Sterling's Revenge Free Company Militia, and the Silver Bullets. Sterling's Revenge coming in with immune to psychology, and I'm not sure what else they really bring. Other than that, you'll have to inform me later. As for the artillery, the Hammer of the Witches, a very good single artillery piece, magic damage, and good accuracy. And for their elite troops and heroes, we're seeing the ROR Demogryph Knights stuck right in the center of this blob. They'll usually want a bit more mobility, and we'll see how Hadri's controls them this game. A Warrior Priest coming in with no Soulfire abilities, I don't think, by the looks of it.
So there's no magic damage?
I
Except for
guess
the
not.
Hammer of the Witches. Wow, so the Cairn Wraith's working out here, apparently. I wonder if he actually knew that Hadri's would take this build.
Yeah, that is very strange considering you usually take warrior priests for soulfire, and the hero core is the usual Franz and Jade Wizard. But more importantly, why is there no soulfire? That seems like almost like an accident that wasn't taken.
That is really strange. Really strange. Yeah, I'm a little concerned. Now, the thing is, okay, Cairn Wraiths actually trade horribly into anything that isn't armor, anything like flagellants. I mean, flagellants destroy Cairn Wraiths in terms of cost efficiency, and the Hammer of Witches will be firing in on them as well. It looks like at the start, so it's not like they're like it's not like it's an auto win or something. They're not that strong of a unit. But it is funny that this is actually like the one time I've ever seen Cairn Wraiths be a good idea against Empire, and they happen to be taken. Now, by the way, you're asking about the Sterling's Revenge. They have armor piercing is the reason why you take them.
All right. Well, that makes a ton of sense then.
And now the Warrior Priest also actually has the fire damage item, so he's imbuing fire damage onto this entire build, which is pretty funny. Not something you see very often. It's a cool little tech piece for sure. However, the only unit in the entire build of Void Laws that'll be weak to fire is that Vargulf. So as long as he's careful with that, he'll be okay. And man, the Scab Scraths onto this formation are going to be absolutely brutal if Void Laws manages to hit them. Um, Scab Scrath does a ton of damage onto flagellants or missile pieces or really anything, and all of them are globbed up like this. It could be a bit of a disaster if Hadri's isn't careful.
Yeah, and although you can sort of predict the scab scrats for any veteran vampire counts player, they should be landing every single scab scrat, and that'll be getting like hundreds of golds worth of value for each cast. Now, for the corpse cart, it is going to be going down by the looks of it from the Hammer of the Witches,
Very
despite
high value target.
yeah, nothing too crazy
Wait,
there.
an invocation. He
Oh, wow.
invocated the corpse. It really is a high value target, apparently.
Apparently
That's
so.
surprising.
That is
But I
equivalent
guess-
to healing like a unit of skeletons, right?
It's cheaper actually, but I guess he wants the AOE buffs given the blob type of game that seems to be going on. And it will be surviving actually, I think, because the Hammer of the Witches really should not be focusing it. I think they could be firing in onto Black Knights, they could be firing in onto Cairn Wraiths, but they are actually choosing to fire onto it again. I don't know what's the deal with this corpse card, but
Yeah, perhaps just the buffs are very important.
yeah, I mean +5 +5 and an AOE is pretty solid. I'll give them that. But yeah, so this Hammer of the Witches has not done anything really in terms of accruing value. Now Vlad is definitely going to be a beast here. There's not much to deal with him. Not that there's ever much to do with Vlad. Now the Vlad double White King is particularly strong against Volkmar, but they'll be doing very well against Franz as well. So Franz is gonna have to, I think, cycle charge very effectively in order to find value in this game in particular. Now the Fellbats coming in, they will be trying to dive onto some missile pieces and shut them down as the counts approach. Now Franz dives in and gets Master of Beguilement to go down on him, and then immediately pulls back. So that's actually a nice bait of that ability. But man, the Scab Scrats are just about to come down, and some pretty nice casts. Actually, not as bad as I was thinking they might be, but a nice raised dead onto the Silver Bullets as well. We'll combo up with that, and the Empire's backline seems to be in some pretty big trouble, but at the same time, they are getting some good buffs here from the Warrior Priest. And yeah, I don't know. It'll be a very ugly fight for sure. The Scab Scrats will be on cooldown for a while now, so as long as the Empire can kill things off quickly, they'll be in an okay spot. And actually, the Blood Knights are way in the back still, not able to find themselves into this engagement for quite some time.
Yeah, I guess just staying well and far away from that from the artillery. And in the meantime, it's just the Black Knights trying to carry out, but they're trying to charge into the backs of into spearmen formation, so they actually don't trade effectively there. However, what is going well for the vampire counts is that the backline of the Empire is mostly shut down at this point. The handgunners are routing off, and the artillery
Oh,
too
Vlad is getting
shut
taken
down.
down quickly though. If Vlad goes down, that will turn this game right on its head. And he is well below half HP at this point. And it looks like his damage resist must be on cooldown because man, he is getting absolutely wrecked right now by the Royal Altar of Griffites, Franz, and the Warrior Priest. Vlad down to 600 HP and crumbling. Oh my god,
Goodness.
he might be in some serious trouble here.
That is crazy. Very uncharacteristic for Vlad. But wow. Basically, yeah, just crumbling away at this point. It means that healing is down for the count. The Vargulf is nearly dead. And I think that play just really sealed the game for Hadri's.
Yeah, that is crazy. The game was going very, very well for Void Lulls, but Vlad just overextending without the support of his White Kings, who he really does rely on to babysit him a little bit. And with his buffs down especially, a bit of a mistake. And the Karen Wraiths are actually doing a really good job just, finding efficient trades. But I don't know, man. It's going to be difficult for them to carry this game out without any healing and without any Lord.
Yeah, and one problem right now for the Counts is that a lot of their troops are starting to crumble. The Karen Wraiths, the zombies, and basically all of their infantry at this point are starting to fall apart. So, yeah, the Vargulf too. No healing on any of these guys. It seems like Franz would probably be able to snipe out the rest of these troops, with really the main downside being the infantry fight, or the cavalry fight. The Counts still do have a pretty nice cavalry advantage.
Yeah, actually a bit of a whiffed Scab Scrape there. Killing probably more Karen Wraiths than anything, but not killing much of anything at all. Is unfortunate because, yeah, Void Lulls needs to be basically as efficient as humanly possible to have any chance of winning this game at this point. The Royal Altar of Griffites are actually getting dragged down quite effectively. And if they go down, maybe the Blood Knights with infantry support can carry a little bit, but I don't know. It seems very unlikely at this point.
Yeah, anything short of a full surround with Blood Knights on Franz is not going to be enough to pull it out for the vampire counts. And even then, Franz is quite the beast in combat, although near his healing cap. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty rough for the counts. The Empire infantry is holding, and the Warrior Priest giving his AoE buffs is actually going to be helping out the troops stick around for quite a while too.
Yeah, a really good use of the Warrior Priest. It's weird still not to see any Soulfires, and I think it would have been a good idea to bring them. But even so, I mean, the use of the fire damage actually really cool. It's nice to see niche items like that being put to good use. And man, yeah, it's just it basically all came down to Void Lulls overextending with Vlad with his cooldowns, being on cooldown, and Hadri is very decisively taking advantage of it.
Yeah, he might have been keeping an eye on that too. Otherwise, if Vlad, and the cooldown that we're speaking of is a what, like a 90% ward save on Vlad?
I don't think it's 90, but it is very high.
Yeah,
it's like 66, I think, maybe.
Yeah, like Orion, like pre-nerf Orion levels of resistances makes them very, very hard to kill. But I guess if you just keep an eye on the cooldowns and time your attacks well, he'll fall just as fast as any other lord. And in the end, he just didn't get too much damage. You were right about those Karen Wraiths, so one of them sneaking into the back did do a lot of damage. But in the end, just not enough. That one big play really is what did it, I think. Plus the snipe on the Vargulf.
Yeah. Also, let's see here. What was I gonna? Man, I had something to say and then I completely lost it myself.
Rip. Yeah, and getting into the game number 2 against Hadri's and Void Lulls. We're seeing a similar greenskin build to last time. In fact, it looks like it will
Exactly the
indeed
same.
be the same one. Haha, I get the easier army build description. Night Goblin with Itchy Nuisance. We got Grom coming on in with his usual kit. Mither, Spirit Leeches. This type of build is good at sniping out Casket of Souls, which would usually be the counter to many infantry options, and also with its extra hit by artillery debuff, it can rout off trolls pretty quickly too. However, on this map, it will be harder to position yourself to snipe out artillery. So we'll have to see how it goes. Just to quickly run over the build again, it's a cheap infantry build with 3 trolls and a ton of skirmishers. So Dactor, what are we seeing for the Tomb King side of things?
So we are seeing Chariot Cetra the Imperishable. So we're seeing a chariot duel for the ages here. I really hope Grom and Cetra go into melee combat against one another at some point. Supporting Cetra will be a Tomb Prince atop a horse, a Necrotect atop another chariot, also having that for restores for the Sphinx of Usep or something. I don't know how to say these names, but it's the Necro Sphinx ROR with fire damage and magic damage. He will be very, very, very strong against Grom or the River Troll Hag or Stone Trolls. We have a front line of, it looks like just chaff, skeleton warriors, skeleton spearmen, a single Screaming Skull catapult, and 2 carrion, which exist, I'm sure, exclusively to chase things off the battlefield. Now we actually see almost no missile units, which means that the greenskins could kite actually very effectively here if they wanted to. Not that they'd get the most damage in necessarily, but it would be very annoying, and they can probably shut down the Screaming Skull catapult before it can get much damage done.
Yeah, but immediately the Screaming Skull catapult does target down that ROR Wolf Rider archer. And that would be a really effective trade for Hadri's if he does manage to take out a few models there. As for the skirmishers, they likely won't be able to hit more than just infantry. So like you said, not an amazing trade. And as for this hero squad, or the single entity squad, we're seeing quite a bit of fire damage between the Sphinx and Cetra. I'm wondering how well they'll do up against the triple stone trolls.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure. I'm not actually sure who would win between Cetra and Grom in a head-to-head fight. I'm guessing Grom, given Lucky Banner's existence, but then again, Cetra can also buff himself quite nicely. So it's kind of hard to say. Now, the Sphinx should be very interesting, actually. I'm not sure how it does against Stone Trolls. Like, does it one-shot models, I guess, is the big question. If it does, then it should get a ton of damage in very, very quickly if it manages to get on top of the Stone Trolls. But if it doesn't, then it might actually take longer than you'd expect for it to drag down models.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see for sure. Now we can see that Voidlaws is actually taking down the Carrion, which is quite nice because the Carrion, again, the only things that can actually chase Stone Trolls off the battlefield, which is very relevant given how often they rout.
And as for Grom, it looks like he's doing a pretty good job just working through the infantry at the beginning of the game. It looks like this is just going to be a long skirmish, and all the winds of magic actually this time. Coming in on Cetra, how do you feel about that sniping target?
I think it's a really good sniping target. Cetra is very, very, very expensive and actually relatively squishy to Vindictive Glares on top of his chariot. 110 armor means it's not like he's going to be getting, really destroyed by it. But Cetra's damage, I mean, he does have some healing, but not great healing, so it's relatively permanent. So yeah, I'm a little concerned for Hadri's that he's just going to get kind of picked apart by these goblin archers and Vindictive Glares and Spirit Leeches, but we'll have to see. The Screaming Skull catapult doing almost nothing so far, just firing ineffectually onto the Forest Goblin Spider Rider archers, but they are starting to get some hits now at least.
Yeah, really the main problem right now is that the infantry is just going to be slowly getting worn away. They need to move up to shield the more important targets from these skirmishers, And while that happens, Grom almost has free reign. The Sphinx, now moving up, is vulnerable to getting shot by archers. So,
Ooh, that's a weird cast. He casts Incantation of Cursed Blades onto the Sphinx, but it has no chance of actually getting to any targets. So I'm not entirely sure about that one.
yeah, maybe it could just be for that
Oh, wait, it's
50
going in onto Grom
extra
now?
HP, but oh, geez,
Oh,
okay.
Grom turning around and taking a massive hit. Two massive hits. I don't know about that play. Man, Voidlaws hates his lords today. My god. Through
Jeez.
Lucky Banner, Grom the Punch gets taken below half HP, down to a third HP in about 10 seconds through Lucky Banner from the Necro Sphinx. I don't know about that play. I think that was a little bit ambitious.
Yeah.
Very, very strange to see, actually. He went into the Cursed Blades that I said would be a wasted cast, but it ended up not being.
Yeah, and Grom, even I guess the lucky banner. It was an intentional play to actually dive in, given that he did cast that. But yeah, Grom. Usually, a lot of the times, he is actually quite tanky, but just with that many buffs against the Sphinx, it was absolutely brutal. I think it has anti-large too. Indeed, it does. So it was almost hitting every attack on Grom.
Yeah, it's not actually going to heal cap him. He'll still have about 700 points of regen if he gets his full regen off, which, given that Voidlaws has absolute control over this battlefield, I'd expect that he will actually get almost all of his healing off before the main battle starts. But even so, I mean, Grom is a lord that oftentimes hits the heal cap anyway, so you really don't want to be taking free damage on him. Now, again, actually, the Cursed Blade's coming in. Okay, he's healing Cetra. That's what
Mm.
that is. He's healing Cetra. That is so he's casting the Cursed Blades just to heal up, and he's not actually using it for combat. That's actually kind of a cool play.
Yeah, essentially in this long skirmish style of game, it gives him quite a bit more HP on his troops, and specifically on Cetra, it's pretty important to have HP. But another snipe attempt on these heroes, the Night Goblin Shaman gets taken down to half HP, almost immediately by these single entities. It seems like Hadri's opportunistic play has been really on point, diving in and getting like really nice trades on these heroes.
Yeah. Now the Sphinx is taking some decent damage, but Restore goes down. He should have how many charges do you get of that? Is it 2?
Of the heal, yes, it's 2 charges.
Yeah. So he'll have another one of those later on in the battle. Um, Getting one of those is quite nice, but yeah, it's certainly not permanent damage that's going down onto this Sphinx. And you see, so the Morgrom's Mangy Marauders have actually not used really any of their ammo, and those are the big ones that'll do actually a lot of work against the Sphinx. So Voidlaws, I think, is wanting to drag this game out over the long term. Also, he'll be fulfilling the attacking role with them, just so that way Grom can regenerate further. But yeah, this use of the Cursed Blades casts, which is like 3 winds of magic onto the units just to heal up. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's what 50 HP across the entire army.
Yeah, a
So
little bit
not
over
bad.
50 too. It's
I don't think it's as efficient of a winds of magic use as the Vindictive Glare spams, but it's not bad. It's I think about as good as it's gonna get. Okay, so we're seeing a big play here. The Necro Sphinx overextending a bit, getting mithered, and some Stone Trolls coming in towards it. The Tomb Kings need to be very careful here, because if that gets picked off, that will be a huge play. But at the same time, if it turns around, it should be able to do huge damage onto the River Troll Hag.
yeah, opting to actually retreat instead just because of these stone trolls and a surround that might actually go down does actually keep the Sphinx up alive without taking too much damage. And with these continued casts coming in from Cetra, it may even be able to heal back to full HP over the course of the game.
Yeah, and also that's, I think, 2 Mithers down already. So only 1 left, and that's a very, very, very important ability. It's really the only crowd control that this Greenskin build actually has. Also worth noting, the Night Goblin Shaman has been taking continuous overcast damage. He's actually taken more damage than Cetra has from these Vindictive Glares. Of course, Cetra a much higher value target, so it's still worth. But it's worth noting that the Night Goblin Shaman with just one more Vindictive Glare cast could be going off the battlefield.
Yeah, and I think in general the greenskins are going to be running out of magic without making too much of an impact. Same goes for the Tomb Kings too, but keeping all of these important units alive with your heals is I think is a better trade for Hadries in this case.
Yeah, now we are seeing Carrion Dive on top of Forest Goblin Spider Riders, which I'm not entirely sure how they trade there, actually. It looks like with the help of some Skeleton Spearmen, they will be winning that battle. But I don't know. If they can chase off the Forest Goblin Spider Riders, that would be a nice pick. Of course, not too huge of value, especially given that the Spider Riders don't have many targets in this Tomb King build, but even so.
Yeah, but more
Oh, now a
importantly,
big
a
blob
big
going
fight.
down, yeah.
Now, in this case, there is a Screaming Skull Catapult. It might opt to fire in on the situation. Hits up the Fanatics instead, actually taking quite a few models. And Grom takes a huge hit from the Sphinx again. The punishment from earlier in the game really affecting him. And if he routes off, I would expect a lot of these trolls to have quite a few leadership issues.
Yeah, now Cetra getting in. The last Mither actually went down onto Cetra to prevent him from getting into this battle. And with that, I mean, no more Mither means this Necrosphinx is going to be able to run pretty much free. And it's doing huge damage onto the Stone Trolls, onto the River Troll Hag. It will be doing a ton of damage as well once it gets some nice hits. And man, the blinded effect from Cetra um, going down as well, it looks like. Oh, no, that's actually from the Screaming Skull Catapult? I'm not sure, but either way, the blob fight definitely going in the Tomb King's favor right
Oof.
now. And
And
the
a huge
Necrosphinx,
Fanatic miscast actually runs through all of those trolls and
oh,
Orc
that's
Boys at the
really
same
brutal.
time.
That is really brutal. Yeah, the Fanatics are definitely a unit that you have to be very careful with. And you can see one Stone Troll is routing, another is routing now as well. And if the Carrion are able to get on top of them, that would be huge. But the Carrion are actually occupied with those Forest Goblin Spider Riders still. So maybe not the best
Yeah,
use of the
however,
Carrion right now.
it
But
seems like, yeah, it's just not going to be needed. With that huge blob of the greenskins getting taken out, it looks like Hadries is now getting into quite the commanding position. His heroes and single entities are still doing pretty good on HP, and it looks like he'll even have the opportunity to chase down both of these Stone Troll units.
ooh, and the River Troll Hag getting absolutely destroyed by the Necrosphinx as well. The Necrosphinx really hard carrying this game. It's pretty nuts to see. Now, Grom is still up, and Wa is going down, so the game isn't over yet by any means. As the Stone Trolls are also starting to come back. If the Greenskins can actually pick off Cetra, we are seeing the Chariot fight here. Cetra against Grom, with Grom getting a bit of an advantage from the Wa and also a rear charge, and the balance of power evens up quite a bit as the Greenskins are, starting to cut through all of the Tomb King's chaff, and if the chaff is gone, then the Tomb King's leadership will have a tough time as well.
Yeah, and in this case though, the Orc Boys do show up, and it's a full surround on Hadries' single entities here. The trolls are back in the fight, their leadership is going strong, but another blinding effect from Cetra actually does a crazy amount of damage. It's an instant rout on the Wolf Archers,
Ooh, the
plus
Ushapti summon is so
the summon.
huge.
Oh my goodness, that is... The Ushapti summon would turn this fight. If it does rout off the trolls, then that is absolutely insanely good for Hadries. And it looks like that one Stone Troll unit, it's on the edge of routing off, and he really needs to keep the army together, but it looks like a mass rout might actually go down.
Yeah, the Carrion finally coming into the battle now. Now the Necrosphinx is actually getting dragged down, and once it goes, that's a lot of the killing power of this Tomb King army gone. But even so, man, with the Stone Trolls all getting routed off, you'd have to think the Tomb Kings are in a good spot here. Again, the game is not over yet, though. The Greenskins have more chaff, and they actually have arguably better dueling potential at this point. And once the Ushapti summon goes down, that'll be a huge deal as well. But as long as the Ushapti summon is up, I have to think that the Tomb Kings have an advantage in this blob fight. So maybe Voidlaws should be pulling back, but instead, he's diving in with everything. And he's actually getting kind of surrounded here. Now, a Vindictive Glare goes down, not going to actually do anything. As Cetra is, it looks like hunting for Grom, wanting the chariot fight, but Grom going to deny it from him.
And as for the blob fight, a few Tomb King's infantry do come back, but it looks like it really depends on how these trolls route off. One of the trolls do actually shatter off the battlefield, and it looks like it's going to be a mass rout on this center engagement here, with the Tomb Kings coming out on top. Really, just a single unit of high HP trolls to chase off, and nothing really to stop that. But instead, it looks like he's going for the River Troll Hag, also a very good choice, as that will take out the leadership and magic for the greenskins, aside from this Night Goblin Shaman. And I really think if Grom was at higher HP, he really would have had a much heavier impact on that fight, but he couldn't really engage just because of the threat of being killed.
Very true. And one more route from these stone trolls will mean shatter. So once that happens, they will be gone off the battlefield. And with that, the greenskins' chances of winning will be pretty much gone as well. So the greenskins need to be very careful with how they use this remaining unit of stone trolls. It's definitely not over still. Now the greenskins have Grom up, they have the stone troll up, or yet one unit of stone trolls up, and then they have some chaff here. But it certainly is looking good for the Tomb Kings at this point, I think.
Yeah, I think the Tomb Kings are finally ahead on the chaff fight when it comes to this battle.
But Cetra's going in really aggressively.
A pretty bad engagement. Cetra just all in, but perhaps he has another an AoE for the blinding effect, but he doesn't. Actually, just a bit of a misplay, taking a bit of damage. And a fight between Cetra and Grom now. Looks like Grom might even come out on top just because of that regeneration.
Yeah, it's a nice charge actually. Grom is being used, I think, better than Cetra is being used. He's getting some nice rear charges onto Cetra. And Cetra's having a hard time actually getting back onto him and returning the damage. But now we can see, man, this is such a weird fight. Both are taking constant small amounts of damage. I actually think that they're both hitting each other and just not doing that much. Ooh, a nice Vindictive Glare actually is not going to do anything again. Man, these undercasted Vindictive Glares are really dropping the ball here. As we can see, Grom is getting chased now by Cetra, and Cetra cannot route anymore. That's actually kind of crucial. And if Grom goes and routes, then I have to think the game is just completely over, and Grom will route.
Yeah.
So it's up to Voidlaws now to chase down and kill Cetra. And wait, Cetra's crumbling. So if Cetra crumbles away and Grom comes back, then the Greenskins might be able to recover this game. And the River Troll Hag also coming in, and the Spider's body blocking. Oh my god, this is such a weird fight. Oh, but Cetra turns around, hits the River Troll Hag, and causes army losses. So, man, pretty crazy game. But Hades is going to take it 2-0. Wow. Very impressive stuff.
Yeah, it turns out, I guess Cetra, the master of chariots, comes out on top and manages to pull out the win at like 300 HP. Just I really thought he would have died there to Grom, but in the end he ended up chasing him away. Cetra was a very hard target to take down, and I think the real hero here was that ROR Sphinx. It did 3,000 points of damage. Cetra with the other 3,000. Between the two of them, they killed off about half of the greenskin forces and were the main source of fire damage to kill off all of these stone trolls.
Yeah, the MVPs for the greenskins, no doubt, the mangy marauders. Definitely one of the most powerful units in the game, I think, in terms of cost efficiency right now. And they show it here, getting 1,500 value. Just firing in out of the Sphinx. 0 kills, 1,500 value. Pretty solid stuff.
Yeah, and thankfully we do actually have these stats now, as in the past, the 0 kills would not have looked nearly as good as it does now.
As for, Hadries, I'm guessing Way Watchers, but you can go with a lot of things here. You can't even go with a rush, as we alluded to. But which side would you like to go over here?
I guess I'll go over Ice Power's Dark Elves, heading up against the forces of Hadries' Wood Elf counter pick. You can see in the bracket here, we are now in the finals of the tournament, and both players coming in the top of the elo, looking to really be yeah, showing their worth with no upsets for the two of them going through the tournament. For Ice Power, we are seeing what you expected, Zactor, coming in with the Chill of Sontar and Malekith on foot. Lots of missile resist all around, a ton of infantry Dark Charge with shields, and basically a full army of shields by the looks of it, except for the no, even the Cold One Knights are shielded too. So enough to weather the missile fire and the Dark Shards with enough missile resist to take quite a few shots before going down. Malekith should have just a standard kit of Soul Stealer, if I could find him. He's hidden away in some Dread Spears. And
Yeah,
indeed,
it is indeed Soul Stealer and Gaze of Malice.
very standard picks on Malekith, and that's going to be it for Ice Power. So, what are we seeing for Hadri's build?
So Hadrian's coming in with something a little bit off meta, not terribly so, but a little bit. He actually has Drycha coming in with Pendulum, and it looks like Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma. We then see a front line of, it looks like 5 Dryads in some weird, funky formation. We have 2 Way Watchers, 2 Way Stalkers, actually, with Arrow of Kurnus. And does he have the Hawkish Precision on both of them? That's quite strange. Oh, no, that's just the passive. But yeah, then he has, it looks like, triple Wild Rider, none of which are shielded, which is quite interesting. They will actually take a lot of damage from missiles if they go in for cycle charging. And then we have 2 Glade Riders with spears to round out the army. So I actually, looking at the builds, I think Ice Power is in a pretty good spot here.
Yeah, his infantry, he has more than enough infantry to tank out 2 Way Watchers worth. As for the 2 Way Stalkers, do you think they have any sniping potential here? Maybe the Chill of Sontar or Malekith?
Yeah, they have to, I think, focus on the Chill of Sontar just because Malekith's shields make him relatively immune to sniping. The big targets for the Way Watchers, I suppose, will be the Chill and the Cold One Knights. But yeah, I mean, there's so much missile resistant shields in this build that Ice Power doesn't have to worry too much. Now, an immediate double Arrow of Kurnus is going to be wasted, I think. Yeah, entirely wasted, pretty much. Arrow of Kurnus doesn't do anything to foot characters, generally speaking. It actually does more damage than it probably should have. I think it got really, really lucky with a double hit there. But even so, only 200 damage, so not really relevant. The double Waystalker is really off meta. I don't think you'd ever expect it here. And particularly against Ice Power's build, it's going to have a hard time. You can see actually they do a surprising amount of damage there to Malekith when they do hit. So maybe over the course of the game they'll be able to wear him down. They are definitely focusing 100% on Malekith rather than, say, the Chill,
though. Yeah, I guess the Chill of Sontar does come in with that regeneration. But Malekith, he has Soul Stealer too, so I don't think he's going to be falling anytime soon in this battle. As for how it's actually progressing, the Wood Elves are being pushed back, and Ice Power has secured himself about half of the map, so he won't be getting kited too long as he continues to press forwards towards the Wood Elves. The Waywatcher volley does hit up these bleak swords too, and so far it seems like Malekith has actually been taking a good amount of damage so far.
Yeah, he has really low HP, so even though he's not really taking much damage, it is reflected quite strongly in his HP bar. The problem with that is that Soul Stealer is going to heal up a ton of his HP bar. Now, okay, a really nice Arrow of Kurnus, again, actually double hits him. That is some insane RNG. And it also kills some Bleak Swords. So Malekith now down to 2200 HP, which, again, Soul Stealer will heal him almost back up to full, but I suppose he will also be heal capped quite quickly because of that.
Yeah, as for the Chill of Sontar, it does take a bit of poking damage, but this almost feels like a bit of a waste on the ammunition front since it will be healing up. But it is the best target for the Way Watchers to be firing in on until actually some infantry does get exposed. Now there is a big cavalry fight along the left flank, and this could be pretty huge, whoever comes out on top.
This is going to be really nice for Ice Power. The Wild Riders choosing to charge into Dark Riders rather than the Cold One Knights means the Cold One Knights will be easily winning this fight. Now Dryads will be coming in for some support, But this is definitely not an engagement that Hadri's wants to be taking, I think. Milikoth's Mystifying Masma going down onto some Cold One Knights is nice. And actually, another Wild Rider coming in and sandwiching them. So actually, it might end up being a relatively even trade. Now, Drycha is the only target for that Soul Steal, and it almost whiffs entirely, which would have been absolutely disastrous. But Malekith will, in fact, get his healing off, and he'll get a lot of healing off from that, actually. But maybe not as much as he would have wanted, and he's still down at only half HP. The Chill of Santar actually getting in, and it's being quite obnoxious. It's hard for the Wood Elves to actually deal with, and some Way Watchers actually getting picked off by Cold One Knights is a really big play.
Yeah, it seems like the despite winning that left flank with the Wild Riders, it did leave his center line a bit exposed, and a breath attack coming in too. It looks like the cavalry fight on this more important right flank is going to be won by ice power.
Oh my god, I don't understand. The Arrows of Kurnus are just destroying Malekith there. They get like 5 hits out of 6. That is huge damage, and Malekith in a lot of trouble now, actually. A Dryad Summon going down as well, and Drycha going in onto Malekith. If he can pick off Malekith, that would be so huge. And oh my god, a huge hit from Drycha onto Malekith. He's down to 700 HP, and the Dark Shard's actually getting picked off by Wild Riders. Now the Way Watchers are still in trouble. A Soul Stealer going down. Will Malekith get it off in time?
Oh, but he routes
No,
off.
he doesn't. Ooh, that is so
Oh my
brutal.
goodness. And there we go. Malekith is now running. He's going to be chased down by Drycha, and he is going to be just down for the count.
Yeah, but at the same time, actually, the Wood Elves losing a lot of their cavalry, and the Chill of Santar is still perfectly healthy. So the game is not by any means over yet. It's going to come down, I think, mostly to the Waystalkers, actually, who are really low on ammo. I don't know how they do in melee against the Chill of Santar.
I don't think they do amazing, and
probably not.
There are 2 units of Way Watchers still.
Oh
back,
wait,
though.
Malekith might come back. Drycha's pathing bugged out and stopped chasing him, and she's actually going to get charged by some Dark Riders, and this could provide Malekith with an opportunity to come back. He's at 5 leadership. If he comes back in Soul Stealer's Drycha, he'll be back in this game, and with that, I think the Dark Elves will actually take the lead.
Yeah, with the Chill of Santar at such high HP, it is a really difficult threat to take out, and Hadri's really would want the leadership debuff to get that thing routing instead of having to fight it to the death. And
very true.
Taking a look at the rest of the battlefield, there's not a lot of Wood Elf forces left, especially on the cavalry front. The Dark Elves have lost a lot of cavalry too at this point, and Malekith is gone.
Oh man, he was at 4 leadership for so long there. I don't know how he didn't come back. Very unfortunate. And now the Way Watchers firing in onto the Chill of Santar are doing some pretty big damage, and the Chill's leadership is really bad. I don't think will stick around for the end of this game, and it looks like Hadri's coming out nicely ahead here, and he will be taking game 1 as Ice Power's Chill of Santar Foot Malekith build ends up failing him here.
Yeah, and I think the sniping attempt on Malekith was a razor's edge play, but in the end it really ended paying off. All the arrows of Kurnos and the focus fire, plus that really nice dive in from Hadri's, we've seen his game sense has been really good for knowing when to move in to snipe out these heroes, and it paid off a lot. The Chill of Santar basically routed off immediately after, and sadly couldn't really find a good fight. Not to mention, I really like the cavalry play for the Wild Riders that dived in onto all of those Dark Shards. Instead of trying to run back to save the Way Watchers, it got a whole ton of value and shut down basically the entire Dark Elf ranged front.
Yeah, it was risky for sure, but it was a good way to recover from a bad situation at the very least. Now, I guess, okay, Malekith must have like surprisingly high mass on foot, because I have never seen Arrows of Kurnus do that to a foot character. Pretty wild stuff, actually. But I'm guessing Hadri's already knew that, given that he was focusing Malekith the whole time. So props to him for that level of game knowledge. Very cool stuff. Like I said, the Drycha double Waystalker, definitely not what you expect to see there, but it's a cool pick, and it ended up working out really nicely.
Yeah, and of course, well played to Ice Power too. The game actually was surprisingly close, despite it being a pretty bad matchup.
Oh.
For game number 2, up against Hadries and Ice Power. For Hadries' build, we are seeing, oh my goodness, what?
Oh my god.
Is
What?
did he actually copy my weapon teams build?
He's full sending the memes. Okay.
I think he's gone heavier into weapon teams than even I usually go for.
This is crazy. It's not gonna work. I'm calling it right now. There's no way.
No,
This
I have
cannot
faith.
work.
I have
This
faith,
cannot
Doctor.
work.
I
This
have faith.
cannot work. Come on.
Come on, how could you not cheer this on? It is indeed a full weapon teams build from Hadries. 4 rattling guns, amazing at slowing down cavalry. Double warp lock Giselle to snipe out any flyers and cavalry alike. With the ever notorious Poison Wind Globadiers. Only a single one by the looks of it to take the flanks. 5 warp fire throwers, which will really melt down any Empire cavalry as long as they can get their shots off, and only 4 Skaven slaves to hold up his front line. A single rat ogre for mass, a single wolf rat to chase things off, and a plague priest, of course, for summons, but only bringing in the single summon since the plague monks did get nerfed. Brings his AoE instead for infantry, presumably. And that's it. That is his entire build.
Over under on this game's length is 90 seconds.
Oh yeah, for sure. Also,
90 seconds.
There's a master assassin here too, but I don't think he's going to play a huge part. Now, for the build of the Empire, what are you expecting, Doctor?
It's rough. It's rough. It's a full cavalry rush against the full weapons team build. Oh no! So we have Volkmar the Grim. We have a Bright Wizard with Burning Head and Fireball. I actually expected another caster as well to snipe out Brood Horrors, but nope. We then see 4 Knights of the Blazing Sun, 3 Empire Knights, and 5 Spearmen, and that's it. I mean, this is... If I had to devise like the ultimate counter build to an all weapons teams meme army, this would be that build. And also, Hadries is starting on the wrong side of a slope. So he's not even going to be able to fire him initially. Like, I don't know. I just don't see any way this works.
Yeah, he's in a very disadvantageous position, for sure. The really only big victory he has is that the Bright Wizard won't have too many targets to hit. But another pretty bad situation. He has 1 too many range units.
Oh my god.
I think that's what he messaged in chat. Let's see here. What do we got? 4, 8. Does he? Seems like he has 12.
See. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Is it 13? Hold on. So it's 5 plus 1 plus 4 is 10.
Oh, there's a Poison Wind Globadier. That's what.
Yeah, the Poison Wind Globadier.
Let's see. Does the Lord count as a range unit though?
You know, I'm not. I think it does.
I thought it.
I am pretty sure it does.
I think Lords and Heroes are not included in this actually.
Really?
In the army-wide restrictions.
Huh, man. I definitely thought that they were, but I guess not. Right? Yeah, no, because I mean, yeah, you can't take 12 missiles plus Sisters of Twilight as widows, for example. I don't think. Right? Hold on. Let's check.
Yeah, I'm looking at the army-wide restrictions for rules 4.04. Units with primary missile attacks are limited to 12 for all armies. Lords and Heroes are not included in this.
Huh. That's surprising. Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh, he said there's some talks about arrow accidentally. Well, I don't know. I mean, if it's in the rules, like I don't know how you can.
We're gonna stick with the rules for now as the tournament organizer. I'm just gonna interpret it as I read it here until it gets changed. So that's gonna be it for now. And
well, yeah, this is quite awkward for sure. I mean, we're talking about a rule break on a game that is decided anyway. Honestly, I don't see any chance that this Skaven build holds up. If it does, then I'll eat those words, but I just don't see it happening.
All right. Now, let's go ahead and dive into the game proper now. Like you said, this is a bad map for the build, and also a bad build
He
for the
forget the
Skaven
plague.
to
Oh my
face.
god, he forgot the plague priest.
He forgot the Plague Priest?
Yeah, yeah.
What?
Plague priest is off in the corner of the map.
Oh, geez, that is...
Yeah, this is. Did I say 90 seconds? I'm giving this 60 seconds.
All right,
I think
well,
this is going to be an incredibly quick game.
Yep, Plague Priest desperately trying to make it into position. And here we go. The armies, they move on in towards each other. And it depends on how well the warp fire does, really. The first volley coming down, melting about a third of the HP on the Empire Knights, but that's not going to be enough. They do make contact, and none of the rattling guns can actually fire. That is definitely really rough. And already we're seeing the right flank getting into a bit of trouble. The left flank getting charged down by some more Empire Knights and Dactyr. It seems like the discussion of the rules may have lasted longer than the actual game itself.
Yes, and it does pass the 60-second mark, so we haven't seen a GG out yet. I was wrong on that front, but it looks like the 90-second prediction might be looking good still. The Skaven are being completely overwhelmed on all fronts. They have nothing to hold back this rush of cavalry. Somehow the balance of power is even, but the game state is not. Very unfortunate that he forgot the Plague Priest even. I don't think it would have made any difference, but like it would have helped a little bit. And okay, the 90-second mark passes, and we have not yet seen a tap out, but we are getting close to army losses if things continue the way they've been going.
Yep, the poor Plague Priest just completely out of position. All of the rattling guns not being able to fire. Although a pretty fun build, this was about the worst case scenario for it.
Yeah, very unfortunate. I would like to see how it would perform on a decent map with the caster actually helping, but Hadri's, I don't know if this is a sign of confidence or what. Bringing this build, maybe he actually thought it was good. Who knows? Hard to make a read into that. But now he's going to have to win the ace match if he wants to win this tournament and end Ice Power's win streak. So
yeah, definitely gonna make this finals a close one for the ace match. Ice Power taking in a pretty decisive victory. Or very decisive victory. If we take a look at the damage values for the weapon teams, the rattling guns, 3 out of 4 of them got only less than 50 damage, which is absolutely brutal for this type of build, and definitely what was the main issue there. They really just got run over. As for well, there's not much else to really go over after that. The Empire Knights, of course, did amazingly, and of course for the counting of the range units, we see here 5 warp fire throwers, up to 9 with the rattling guns, 11 with the Giselles, and 12 with the Globadiers. The assassin does not count as a range unit, as it is a lord/hero. So for the final match between Ice Power and Hadri's, Ice Power has gone for the coast up against Greenskins, bringing in a deck gunner terror build with the Shade Wraith gunners. Not a whole ton of terror. In fact, there's not even a Luther Harkin here. Going for Count Noctilus instead, and a very wide line of bombers and handguns. He's bought 2 Scurvy Dogs, some Sirens, and this is a classic gun style for the coast. Really good for sniping out archers, but up against the Greenskins, you do run a bit of the risk of being overrun, or alternatively outgunned, as the archers for the Greenskins can be quite numerous. So with that out of the way, we'll just do a quick look at Noctilus's abilities. Very standard summons and heals, and what are we seeing for Hades' build?
So Hadri's coming in with a interesting build actually, or at least an interesting hero core. He has Skarsnik, and he actually has Skarsnik with his shotgun ability, which you almost never see. I guess it might do well against Shade Wraith Gunners though, no?
It could. Depends on how many. I haven't played around with it much, so.
Yeah, so we see that. We then see an Orc Shaman with Fists of Gork, Brainburster, and Gaze of Mork. Very, very, very standard. We then have a front line of, it looks like, a bunch of Savage Orcs, Orc Boys, and a singular unit of Black Orcs, presumably just to drag down any crabs, but there are none in this build, so they might struggle a little bit to repay for themselves. Then we have an archer line of Savage Orc Error Boys. It looks like 5 of them in total. The Rusty Errors, Night Goblin Archers ROR. We have a couple of Forest Goblin Spider Riders. We have a couple of Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers. And we have the 8 Peak Loonies, pretty much obligatory in every matchup. Hopefully Hadri's doesn't forget them like he forgot his caster. But we will have to see. That it's the same exact corner, so is he really going to forget a unit in the exact same corner?
Well, hopefully not. And there we
No,
go. They
he
move.
remembers them. Okay.
All right, now for the matchup. We're looking at a pretty heavy infantry archer build. Very standard for the greenskins, but the thing about Hades and his build is that he doesn't have that many mobile elements. Just 2 goblin forest spider riders, or actually 3 of them, plus 2 skirmishers, and that's it. The rest is going to be the infantry and the archers. So this backline of deck gunners should be able to keep firing for the majority of the game until the front line collapses for ice power.
Yeah, and also Grom is not in this build, so that's one disruption tool that the greenskins normally would have that they're missing. So pretty much, I think the greenskins are going to have to really rely on their archers. They're going to just have to try and outshoot the coast and keep scurvy dogs off of their archers and, break through the front line at the same time. I don't know, though. I really like Ice Power's build against what Hadri's has brought. The bombers will do a ton of damage to Orc Boys. The deck gunners and the handguns should do quite well into the archers. And yeah, I mean, in general, I think Hadri's might have been a little bit more prepared for a crab rush. But Ice Power coming in with the gunline build, and it's a nice mix-up.
Yeah, for sure. I was definitely expecting a rush too. And we'll see how this plays out. Now, a very big point to note, the Night Goblins do get spotted, which means that their chances of actually diving in onto the sides are going to be pretty hard, pretty well disrupted. Plus a deck gunner fire on top of them will be taking out a few models, and they have to drop their fanatics early. It looks like it actually misses all of the zombies. It's pretty rough, but their cooldown will be coming back eventually, and it shouldn't be too much of a problem. In fact, it even clips the bombers just a tiny bit, but a win for Ice Power for sure.
Yeah, a very minor win, but a win all the same. Now, we are seeing the shotgun.
And it goes in on Noctilus.
And it does nothing. Yeah, that's not how you use that ability, I think. You use it on multi-entity units.
It did kill off half the HP of the zombie deckhands, though. That is almost 200 gold worth of value.
Very true.
Not terrible, but it did nothing to Noctilus for sure.
Yeah, it accidentally did okay.
Yeah.
If he used that actually on the Shade Wraith Gunners, it might be really nice if he's able to do that later on. We'll see.
Yeah, now the main engagement is getting underway. The Fanatics will die pretty quickly to Scurvy Dogs, and as for all of the infantry, the bombers should hold up fairly well against this front line, but really battering.
Skarsnik is taking a ton of fire right now. Not that he's going to be nuked too quickly, but I mean, even so, that's permanent damage. He has regen like Grom does. Now, actually, the Force Goblin Spider Rider is actually getting a free charge onto some Scurvy Dogs is quite nice. But at the same time, the other Force Goblin Spider Rider is getting routed off quite quickly. And I don't know, it's a very messy engagement across the entire front line, but all 4 of the bombers actually are still online and firing, which gives me a lot of concern for the greenskin build.
Yeah, and one of the Scurvy Dogs does go down to the goblin Night Goblins on the flank, and that's probably the biggest worry for Ice Power. But the biggest worry for Hadries is that Skarsnik is actually getting gunned down pretty hard. He is he's lost 1/3 of his
Ooh, the
HP,
Black Orcs.
but the guns have turned instead, yeah, to shoot the Black Orcs, and it looks like those guys will be going down pretty quickly. However,
Yeah.
the Fanatics, if they actually shut down the deck gunners, that is a pretty big problem for ice power. In the meantime, though, it looks like they are just caught up on the handguns.
Well, okay, so this is how this matchup tends to go. Is things look really good for the coast initially, and then their front line dissolves, and then they have nothing. Um, so the coast has done a ton of damage. It might be enough, but you can see that the greenskins are starting to break through. They're actually getting back onto the deck gunners now, and this could be where the game turns completely on its head, as you can see Noctilus is actually surrounded right now, and he's actually doing quite well against Skarsnik. Skarsnik is not a foot character duelist. Like, he won't do well against Noctilus, really. So he wants to be careful there. And yeah, the biggest thing is whether or not these deck gunners can get shut down permanently, or if it's just a temporary disruption.
Yeah, two of them already looking like they'll be down for the count, and without a lot of heals, they'll be dying. The Shade Wraith do manage to stay alive, though, and more importantly, actually, these 3 handgun units, if they can stay firing, they will actually be quite good in this situation. Plus, the Shade Wraith Gunners still being alive, and the Terror looks like they do rout off that unit of Goblin Spider Riders on the flank. And it's just keeping these lines alive. The Sirens will be very important too for finishing off the Archers. But Skarsnik
Ooh.
looks like he's going to be firing his shot in, and
Oh, and it does pretty good damage, actually. Wow.
Okay.
So, an invocation of Nehet going down. Now, are there any Winds of Magic for a Fist of Gork? Because that would be really huge. If you can get a Fist of Gork onto the Sirens, that would probably be enough to actually seal this game. The summons are really nice, though, from Ice Power. So, I mean, it's still a relatively close game, but the backline definitely struggling for Ice Power. He has these units still firing, but I mean, eventually they're going to get overwhelmed.
yeah, unless the Shade Wraith Gunners can really terror out the incoming Savage Orcs, the Handgunners are looking like they're slowly getting overwhelmed now, especially with the Archer support coming in. It depends on whether or not the Sirens are able to win that fight. Now, the Savage Orcs, they get absolutely demolished, very quickly actually getting routed off. And another Wraith Storm on Skarsnik looks like that's actually going to be putting him very low. So far, things looking like they're actually going pretty well for Ice Power now. It just depends on whether or not this core of 3 gun units manages to stay alive.
Yeah, you can see they're doing a great job, and the lack of magic damage is huge. And also, okay, the Orc Shaman is getting terror routed here. By what is it getting terror routed by?
I think it was by the Sirens, just
Okay.
as they were retreating.
Now he will be coming back, but Skarsnik, I don't think is going to be able to beat Noctilus here in this 1v1. And
Yeah.
if Skarsnik goes down, then that'll definitely seal the game. And it definitely looks like Ice Power has managed to somehow stabilize with these 3 gun units in the back line, just shooting at everything that comes his way and killing them.
It was pretty rough for a hot second, as 2 of his deck gunners did go down, but the handgunners can never be underestimated. Their damage is absolutely insane, and just with Noctilus too, getting in some pretty good engagements on Skarsnik, looking like that is probably going to be it, and Hadrius taps out.
Well, so Ice Power going to be taking, what is this, like the 4th straight tournament?
This is his 6th tournament in total, and in a row, this is his the 4th ladder's finest that he's won. So in terms
Pretty
of
nutty.
Elo-based tournaments, he has won each and every single one of them, and is on a 4 tournament winning streak.
Pretty nutty for sure. Ice Power, definitely the king of Anticity's tournaments and ladder. I mean, we'll have to see, man, who might be able to drag him down next time, because at this point it's getting a little ridiculous.
Yeah, just consecutive wins, and as we are moving on to Elo tournaments from here on out, it's We're going to be seeing a lot more ice power, that's for sure. Now looking at some of the values for the greenskins, I think Hadri's did pretty well. He did shut down a lot of the guns, but just looking at those poor black orcs, a really nice counter to rushes, but 120 value on them is really unfortunate. The 8 peak loonies too, they actually did really well, but in the end, he just wasn't able to pin down those handguns long enough for his front line to push through. And that's gonna be it. GG and well played to Ice Power.